right, this is my third time filming this. I'm not using my microphone. That's part of the reason why I'm filming it again. I don't know, I'm gonna have to figure out how to properly use my little microphone that I have. But the main reason that I'm filming this for a third time is I filmed it once. I didn't like the order that I talked about these books in. I filmed it a second time. I thought it was gonna be great. And then I was editing it and I was like, why is this video going to be over half an hour long? I don't want it to be. I was talking about the books too much because my reading goal, sort of, a reading desire, a reading wish, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a goal because that implies that if I don't accomplish the goal, then I've failed, which isn't how I think about reading. In any case, my reading desire for the year is to read books that I already own. I recently went through and listed all of the books that I own in a spreadsheet. I checked off which ones I have read, and I own 463 books. I've only read 200 of them, so that is 43% of the books that I own. I would love to get that number to 50% by the end of this year. And in order to do that, I need to read at least 31 books. So I have 31 books here that I own. And when I was going through my bookshelves, picking out what books are kind of my priorities for the year, I was thinking, number one, are these books that I have owned for a long time and haven't read yet? I would love to get those read. Are these books that I own in series that I haven't finished? I'd love to finish the series, some of the series that I'm in the middle of. And then just generally, like, is this book something that I'm excited to read? That being said, while I was watching the footage from my second attempt, there were so many books where I was like, I don't know what to say about this because I haven't read it. So I don't know why I was trying to say so much stuff about these books, some of these books, that I don't know what to say anything about. I'm just gonna show you rapid fire. Hey, here's the books that I don't really have anything to say about. I just want to read them because I've owned them for so long that I just need to read them. And then I can talk a little bit more about the books that I have something to say about. So let's just get right into it, shall we? I did not read a lot last year. I read 20 something books. I don't remember. 12 of them were Death Note. But that's a lot less. That's a significantly lower number than I have read in the years previous. So I have been in kind of a reading slump. So I am doubting my reading capabilities. So by having 31 books, like, that still feels manageable for me and like knowing what I'm capable of, but it's also pushing me a little bit more than what I read last year because I want to get back into the books. So, all right, we're going to start with the books that I don't really have much to say about. These are, I have 8 of those books here. All 8 of them were gifts from my mother. Thank you, Mother. And I say this with all of the kindness and all of the love in my heart, because when someone gives you a book, that's like a wonderful thing, right? It's so great. Every single time I'm given a book, I'm always excited. However, a lot of the times when people give me books, they're not books that I necessarily would have picked for myself. So then I don't reach for them immediately when I'm looking at my bookshelves and trying to decide what I want to read next. So I am going to focus in on these this year. A lot of these are short story collections. I think that people in my life think that I enjoy short stories more than I actually do because, well, I went to school for creative writing, and when you're in school for creative writing, you write a lot of short stories. You also read. You read so many short stories, and then you get sick of short stories. And so I have all of these short story collections that I was given, but I'm like, I am so tired of short stories, even though it's been 4 years since I've been in school. I kind of can't read short stories without like having the fight or flight. Like, oh, I need to be thinking about it. I need to be analyzing this. I need to like have a discussion ready. I need to like write something about it. I need to fucking connect it to my studies. But I'm trying to heal my relationship with short stories. So I have 4 short story collections here. I'm just going to show you the covers and I'm going to tell you the titles and the authors. Like, I don't really know, even when I am excited, even when there is a short story collection that I'm excited about, like, what is there to say other than this is a short story collection, you know? So these 4 collections are Unfinished Stories of Girls by Catherine Zobel-Dent. I have had this. I've had this since I was like 16. It's been 10 years. It's been 10 years since I've owned this book and I haven't read it, but I would love to read it this year. And then the other 3, these are books that I received while I was in college and or maybe potentially shortly after graduating college. But these are Here's Your Hat, What's Your Hurry? And also Thunderstruck. These are both by Elizabeth McCracken. And then the 4th short story collection I have here is Wait Till You See Me Dance by Deb Olin Unferth. These are all short story collections written by a single author. I have more. I have so many short story collections. I have more that are like anthologies of multiple authors, but I just kind of wanted to focus in on the ones just by one author this year. And then I also have 2 poetry collections here that I would like to read because I have owned them for a very long time. This is Amanda Gorman's Call Us What We Carry, and then Great Goddesses by Nikita Gill. I do know that I like Amanda Gorman's poetry, so I am excited to read this. I just haven't gotten around to it since I have received it. And then Great Goddesses, this is poetry inspired by mythology, which I feel like since things like stories, poems, books inspired by mythology has become such a trend in the last several years, I'm always a little bit hesitant because since there's so much of it, a lot of it is just like kind of mid. I hope this is not mid. I hope this is a really, you know, excellent, wonderful mythology inspired poetry collection, but I guess we'll find out. And then finally here I have 2 nonfiction books. I have in total selected 5 nonfiction books that I would like to read this year that I own. Because again, I'm not a big nonfiction person, but I'd like to ease myself more into the nonfiction that I own because I am interested in it, or else I wouldn't have it. I just get so intimidated by nonfiction for whatever reason, even though I shouldn't. I'm smart. What the fuck? Okay, so here, another sort of mythology adjacent thing. This is Cassandra Speaks by Elizabeth Lesser. The subtitle for this one is When Women Are the Storytellers, the Human Story Changes. So I think this is like a feminist lens on a lot of Greek mythology for the most part, I assume. But isn't this a gorgeous cover? It got a little bit of sun damaged, so ignore that. The spine as well, but that's gorgeous. And then the other nonfiction book that I have here in my very rapid fire section, which is kind of ironic considering what it's about. This is The Library Book by Susan Orlean. This is like, I think maybe sort of investigative, sort of also just generally telling the story of the 1986 fire in the Los Angeles Public Library. I haven't really read much of the synopsis, but it's like, was it an accidental fire? Was it purposely set by someone? Obviously, I think it's also going to get into the importance of libraries. There's probably going to be like a dozen Library of Alexandria parallels in this book. And I really hope that when those parallels inevitably do come up, I really hope whoever is making them, whether it's Susan herself or like quote from someone, I really hope they're not like acting like this is some crazy unique parallel to draw between 2 fires of libraries. Those are the rapid fire books because I just don't have a lot to say about them. I don't really know what they're about. I just want to read them so I can say that I've read them. Let's move on to the next stack I have here. These are books in series that I would like to finish. Again, I'm not really going to say too much about these because they're like books in a series. So I guess I'll tell you what the first book was like, if I remember. We're gonna start strong with a book series that everyone fucking knows about, so I'm really not gonna say too much about it. This is The Poppy War, books 2 and 3, Dragon Republic, and Burning God. I read the first Poppy War book in 2023, in July, or like sometime in the summer of 2023, and I had a great time. I loved it. I just didn't then continue on with the rest of the series because that summer there was a lot going on that summer. Like, what is there to say about this series that hasn't already been said by people who have actually read it, unlike me? It's a fantasy series. It's inspired by, Chinese history, Chinese mythology. It is dark, it is intense, and I love dark and intense fantasy. So I just need to finally finish these 2 books. I need to start them and I need to finish them. All right, next up, this is the second book in a duology. This is The Legacy of Yangchen, which is one of the Avatar, The Last Airbender universe novels about the avatars before Aang. I love Avatar. I love Avatar, The Last Airbender. So I believe this series is called the Avatar Chronicles. We had 2 Kyoshi novels and then 2 Yangchen novels, and then just a couple years ago, 2 Roku novels came out, which I didn't even realize that those came out until a few days ago, honestly. But I read the Kyoshi novels, I don't even know when I read them, but I really enjoyed the Kyoshi novels. And then I read The Dawn of Yangchen, the first book in the Yangchen duology, and I thought it was okay, but I had already bought The Legacy of Yangchen, so I was like, I just might as well, I better finish it. And then I'll find the Roku novels through my library if I so desire to read them. I will go a little bit into Yangchen and her kind of story if you are an Avatar fan and you're wondering oh, maybe I might be interested in these books. So Yangchen, her kind of thing that I think they established because of, for the purpose of these books, is that she is very connected to her past lives as the Avatar, and this very, very close connection, it affects her in ways that she doesn't always know whether or not she is herself or if she is in the memories of one of the past avatars. And then there's a lot of political intrigue stuff going on with these various cities throughout the Avatar world, which that was really cool to experience new locations in the Avatar universe. And then her Avatar companion is a waterbender named Kavik, and they start off as having a transactional relationship. I think it's she found him doing something slightly shady, and then she was like, oh well, I can use you to do these shady things that I can't do as the Avatar. And then it develops into more of a friendship. That was fun to read about, that sort of Avatar and companion dynamic. I don't know if they're going to end up being romantic or not. I don't know if I want them to be. But in any case, I am interested to see how this series wraps up, this little part of her life. The next one here is another YA book, and it's the final in a series. This is The Nobleman's Guide to Scandal and Shipwrecks by Mackenzie Lee. This is the 3rd and final book in the Montague siblings trilogy, which is a historical adventure type series. The first 2 books in the series I really enjoyed when I read them. Several years ago now, probably. And then this one is interesting because the protagonists of the first 2 books in the series, what are their names? Percy and Felicity. Percy and Felicity are close in age. And then this is their younger brother, who I think his name is Adrian. Yeah, Adrian. When Percy and Felicity were teenagers in the first 2 books, Adrian was a baby. So I'm intrigued to see, with this whole time skip, this huge time jump between the first 2 books and then this one, I'm interested to see what Mackenzie Lee does with that. I do know that a friend of mine who loves the first 2 books, at least I know for sure the first book in the series is one of her favorite books of all time. And then she also really loves the second book. She hated this book. I don't really know what to expect, honestly. but I'm gonna find out. It is the longest one in the series, which I'm like, why? Why is it the longest one in the series? It probably doesn't have to be. Okay, next up, these are my final series books. These are tie-ins to a podcast that I really love called The Bright Sessions. It's A Neon Darkness and Some Faraway Place, both by Lauren Shippen. The podcast that these are tie-ins for is called The Bright Sessions. The podcast itself essentially is about these people who have these like superpowers. They're not called superpowers within the universe of the show, but it's essentially superpowers. Some of the powers are like more low level, some are more high level, but it's really about how having these powers in a world where people don't know that people have superpowers, how that affects you. And so the show itself is like transcriptions, or not transcriptions, recordings of these people's sessions with Dr. Bright, their therapist, the Bright Sessions. So these are all like technically standalones. The first one was about one of the main characters from the show and his, relationship with the guy who becomes his boyfriend. They're both in high school. He's like figuring out that he's queer, and he has he's an empath, which I know has become a meme, but like literally this show's from 2015. Okay, he's an empath in like the most literal sense. He can feel other people's emotions. And so the book was essentially a novelization of what we already saw in the show, which was really fun. But then these two books are going to be like completely brand new things from these two different characters. So I do know that A Neon Darkness follows one of the like antagonists of the series, which I'm really excited for. He's one of my favorite characters in the show. He's so interesting. His power is he can like influence people to do things that he wants them to do, which is obviously like, that is some super villain bullshit. Like, no wonder he's the antagonist, right? But because I know this is like sort of how he becomes the like asshole that he becomes. But also it's a YA book, so I'm not expecting it to get too dark, but I am very intrigued. And then the third book in this tie-in series is about a character who her power is she can go into other people's dreams. And the interesting thing about this character is she was introduced like very late into the show. And as much as I loved the show, I always was like, why was this character introduced at this time where the story was at? It just felt very bizarre to me. So I am interested to see more of her, and I'm interested to see if this takes place like after the events of the show, and we just get to learn like how, things after what happens at the end of the Bright Sessions affects her. So yeah, we'll see. I was in the middle of a Bright Sessions re-listen because I was kind of planning on reading these last year, and then I didn't. And then I also kind of forgot that I was re-listening to the show. So I might have to get back into my re-listen as well before I get to the books. And then next up, I have my stack of books because I know that other people in my life love these books and have recommended them to me. Sort of. We're going to start with the one that's like not exactly that situation, and that is this naked hardcover of A Christmas Carol. This is in this section because I belong to a dance company, and one of our like wintertime shows that, we would recirculate every few years was A Christmas Carol. But since 2017, my company has done my like hometown's winter performance of the Nutcracker. And so we haven't been able to do our old winter shows since 2017. And so my director decided, she's like, I want to do Christmas Carol again. We're doing it during the summer. So I'm gonna have to read this in like May. But yeah, I've never actually read Christmas Carol. The only other book by Charles Dickens that I've read was A Tale of Two Cities. I read that in high school, and I am very glad to see that this is a lot shorter than that one was. So hopefully it'll be a relatively quick and easy read. I mean, I know I love the Muppets. I love the Muppets Christmas Carol. So at least if I don't like the actual source material, I'll always have the Muppets. Okay, next up here I have If Not Winter, Fragments of Sappho. I want to read this because a friend of mine recently borrowed this from me, and I've never read it myself, but she came with me to work, not like to work, but for a while I was living in like my hometown. I had to drive an hour in to work every day. But she came with me one day and she was like doing her own thing in the town where I work at, and then we like had a little evening out together. It was really cute, it was really fun. But the night before, she was staying with me and she was like, hey, do you happen to have If Not Winter? And I was like, I do. Here you go, bestie, have at it. And she read it like over the course of the day, because it's just like Sappho's poetry is all fragments. So I want to read this finally. I want to be able to talk about it with my friend. And I know I'm going to enjoy this because it's Sappho, and also because if I don't, I am contractually obligated to not be gay anymore. And I don't want that to happen. Okay, next up, I'm going to show these two books at the same time because these are both another friend of mine, two of her favorite books. These are Trevor Noah's memoir, Born a Crime, which is about his, childhood growing up in South Africa during apartheid, and then also Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin, which is like a classic queer novel, which I'm so surprised that I haven't read yet. But now is the time to get on both of these. I have a few more things to say about Trevor Noah's book, actually. I don't watch television. I know that Trevor Noah is like a late night talk show host. Is he also a journalist? I don't know. I know he's like comedic. Like I don't know really much about him. I know my mom likes him. So I did see on the back here that this, I guess, won the Thurber Prize for American Humor. So I'm a little bit intrigued to see kind of what the balance is between the humor in this book, and then also there's surely going to be some really emotional stuff in here. I'm very intrigued by this. And then, yeah, I'm so excited to read Giovanni's Room. I've heard nothing but wonderful, amazing things about this book, and I desperately need to read it. And then finally, for my recommended by friends section, one of a different friend of mine, her favorite author is Octavia E. Butler. And so these are the two Octavia E. Butler books that I own. These are not necessarily her favorite Octavia E. Butler books, but they are the ones that I bought before I even knew that this friend of mine loved Octavia E. Butler. If I had known beforehand, I would have like been like, oh, which ones should I buy? But these are like her most, I think, widely read or well-known books. So that's fine too with me. I know that Kindred is about a Black woman who is like transported back in time to like the antebellum era South. And so obviously I don't know exactly what Octavia is going to do with that premise, but I have faith that it will be something really, really impactful, and I'm very excited. And then Parable of the Sower has been quite popular in the last few years, at least in my like online reading circles, just because of how like she predicted so much with this book. That's really all I know, is that she predicted so much. What exactly did she predict? I don't know. I'm gonna find out. The climate stuff, that's really all I know about this book, but I am excited. Okay, now I have two more stacks of books. I'm starting with this one because it's the one closest to me, but these are the books that I just want to read them because I want to read them. And we're going to start here with YA Wake Early by Mary Oliver. This, I've never read a full complete Mary Oliver collection. I've like read several of her poems over the years, and every single time I love it. I love Mary Oliver's poetry, and I can't believe I haven't actually read a full collection of hers. Next up here we have Dante's Inferno. I want to read this because I love Hozier, and his most recent album, Unreal on Earth, was inspired by the structure of this novel, not necessarily like a one-to-one parallel of like the circles of hell, although like they kind of were. It's hard to explain. If you're a Hozier fan, you know. If you're not, you don't need to worry about it. But I have wanted to read Dante's Inferno for years now, even before my obsession with Hozier has reached the heights that it is at. And I do have an edition that has all three of the like Divine Comedy poems in it, but this one is just Inferno. So I'm not sure if I'm only gonna read Inferno or if I'm gonna read all three of them. We'll see. I at least want to read Inferno. Okay, next up we have Song of Solomon. I don't know what this book is about. I've read Beloved by Toni Morrison. I read that in high school. So it's been a while. I think if I was to read Beloved now, I would enjoy it and appreciate it significantly more than how I appreciated it back then. I remember liking the book. I also remember thinking it was a really hard read in terms of like comprehension, also in terms of content. So I would love to return to Beloved someday, but I purchased Song of Solomon at some point last year because I knew I like to read authors' books in the order that they're published. Obviously, I'm not going to do that with Octavia E. Butler. I thought I was doing that with Toni Morrison when I bought this because I knew like, oh, her first book is blue. And obviously the cover of Song of Solomon is a blue cover, but her first book was The Bluest Eye. It's fine. I'm not gonna go out and like purchase The Bluest Eye just to purchase it. I'm just gonna stick with Song of Solomon. Clearly the universe wants me to read Song of Solomon, and that's what I'm gonna do hopefully this year. All right, next up we have a book that's more of like a representation of a nonfiction topic that I would like to read at least one book from, because I own several books about this topic and I have only read a few of them. But this is a book about art crime. So this exact book is The Woman Who Stole Vermeer by Anthony M. Amore, or maybe it's Amore. I don't know how Italian he is. But I own like 11 books about art crime and I've only read maybe 3 of them. So I would like to read at least one of my art crime books this year. Whether it's this one, whether it's another one, doesn't really matter to me because I've read 3 of them, like I said, only 3, but also like a lot of the same. Oh, it's a lot of the same stuff. A lot of the same people are interviewed. A lot of the same discussions are had within them. But it is a discussion that I love to read about. I just think art crime is so interesting. I don't care about any other types of true crime. When people are like, hey, listen to this true crime podcast or read this book, it's about true crime. I'm like, I don't care. I don't want to read or hear about people being murdered. I want to hear about people stealing shit. I want to hear about rich people getting fucked over. Please and thanks. And then we have Sister Outsider by Audre Lorde. This is a collection of her essays and her speeches. I've heard absolutely nothing but wonderful, amazing things about this book. It's about race, it's about gender, it's about sexuality. I simply need to read it. I have a collection of all of her poems as well. I haven't read that yet, but I think I want to start with Sister Outsider and then move on to her poems at some point. I'm so excited to read this. Oh my god. And then I have a book here that I have been saying I've wanted to read this book for literally years now, and I've kept putting it off. Will this year be the year? I don't know. We're gonna find out. That's Brideshead Revisited by Evelyn Waugh. This is, I believe, another like homoerotic classic. It's not as well known as a lot of the other like classics that people consider or think of when they think of queer classic literature. But I heard about it several years ago when I was in high school and I was in my Tumblr classic literature blog era. And I've wanted to read it ever since. So maybe this will finally be the year. And finally here, this is potentially the book that I want to read the most out of all of the books I have here, even in like the next stack that I have to show you. But again, I don't really know what it's about, and that's fine. I love not knowing what books are about before I read them because then I'm surprised. I don't have any expectations going into it. I can just let the book happen to me, you know? But this is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. This big old brick, this big old tome. Piranesi is one of my favorite books, but of course Piranesi was written like 20-ish years after Jonathan Strange was, and I'm so intrigued to see, and like Piranesi is like 200 pages. This is so many more pages than that. So I am really, really very intrigued to see what Susanna Clarke's first novel is like. And again, this is a book that I have only ever heard amazing things about. So I'm so excited to read this, and I am going to insert a little clip here from my previous attempt at making this video, just because I did enjoy what I had to say in it, and I did wear this sweater again because this is what I wore when I filmed that second version. So for continuity's sake, because I knew I was probably going to put that in here, I'm wearing the sweater again. That's the only reason why I'm wearing the sweater. And I probably over-explained this, and I'm sorry. Anyway, flashback to past me to complain about money. So I'm not holding the book up because it's heavy. It's big and it's heavy. So I'm not gonna keep holding it up. But I was looking at the inside cover. This book, this particular edition, belonged to my grandmother, and a few years ago she was like, hey, go through my books and just take whatever you want, I don't care. And I was like, awesome, I'm taking Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell immediately. But I was looking at the inside cover where the price is, and it's $27.95. This book was published in 2004. This is the first US hardcover edition published in 2004 of this book. And I am gonna hold it up again. Look at how fucking big it is. It's got the deckled edges. It's the hardcover itself is just plain black hardcover. There's nothing fancy on it at all. But this book was published in 2004, $27.95. The adult fiction book that I own that was published most recently is here, Our Hideous Progeny. Great book, fantastic read. Very much I recommend this book. And then again, I'm going to say it I was given this copy. I did not purchase this copy myself. But if I had purchased this book myself, it would have been $32. And now remember what Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell looks like. And then we have this book, which, like I said, the book itself is great. There's nothing special about what it looks like, though. Sorry. The cover is gorgeous, yes, but there's no, this is, I think, even before, this was published in 2024. So 20 years, exactly 20 years after Jonathan Strange, this book is published. $32. There's none of the, fancy special edition, special fucking edges that, every single book has now. But I think that's so interesting. Isn't that so interesting? That's why I don't buy books. That's why I use my fucking library. And that's why, because I own so many books and I haven't read them, and I have spent so much money on books over the years. Anyway, that's a topic for another day. I can't start ranting about that now. I just think the price difference is fascinating. And of course, inflation exists. And this is not the time or the place to go into this tangent about prices increasing and the cost of living, but it's something that I think about a lot. Okay? Anyway. Okay, my very last stack of books that I have here, continuing with the theme of big, massive, classic sci-fi fantasy tomes, I have Dune by Frank Herbert. This stack here are my library books and also books that I am borrowing. This is from my coworker. When I say borrowing, I mean he handed me this book and I had no choice but to take it from him. So yeah, I will be reading Dune this year. I have read 17 pages. It's progress. But yeah, I've had this for a few months now and I feel bad. And he's so chill. He's like, it doesn't matter, just read it. Just get to it whenever you want to get to it. But I'm also like, you have the whole series in your office. That's the only reason why I have this. I saw that he had the whole series and I made some comments about it. And he made some kind of Dune joke, and I was like, I would make a Dune joke back if I knew anything about Dune. And he just handed me the book and I was like, I guess I'm gonna read Dune now. Okay, that's why I have Dune, and that's why I will be reading Dune at some point this year. And then I'm just gonna quickly go through my library books that I currently have out. For the most part, these are literary, sort of, and they're a lot of these are for a video that I would like to make, so I won't get too into why I want to read them. But very quickly, again, just title, author, brief brief little synopsis. We have One's Company by Ashley Hudson. This is about a woman who is obsessed with a sitcom, and she like spends years recreating the sitcom set and then acting out each episode one by one just by herself, which sounds awesome. That sounds like something I would do. Then we have No One Is Talking About This by Patricia Lockwood. This is like the first half of this book is like about social media, and then the second half of this book is like really emotional, and that's kind of all I will say about what I know about this book. And then I have Rejection by Toni Tulatamudi. This is a short story collection. Again, like I said about short story collections and my relationship with them, I hope I like this. I'm a little bit nervous though. We'll see. And then I have Sky Daddy by Kate Folk. This is about a woman who wants to fuck airplanes. And I heard that and I was like, I need that immediately. Thank you very much. So those were all like literary, like weird literary, but still on like the more literary side rather than any particular genre, I believe. But then this one is more of a horror novel, I think. This is This Thing Between Us by Gus Moreno. And I know like the tagline for this book is a man has a haunted Alexa, but anyone who's ever said anything more about this book is like, it's not really about that. Thank God, because I wouldn't read this book if it was. And then my final library book, we're going back to the big ol' sci-fi book theme. This is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I am one of those insufferable people who has to say, I've wanted to read this before it has been like so popular lately because of the movie coming out. But then because it's been so popular, I'm like, well, if there's any time to read it, it is gonna be now. And I better get myself on the wait list because it's gonna be long. And then I'm gonna need to read it as soon as I can because there's still gonna be people waiting for it after me. But I have really wanted to read this for a few years now. And I might end up seeing the movie, so I want to read it before I see the movie. All I know about this book is like it's a man on a space mission and he wakes up on the spaceship by himself. I think maybe like his other crew members are dead and he doesn't remember what he's supposed to do. Which like that's so interesting. That's so, I can't wait. I am very excited to read this book. I have to remind myself of the premise so I'm not like so pissed off about it being really popular right now. And then that reminds me that I do indeed want to read this book. And then, I will show you the books that I am currently reading. I am reading Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. I started this a few days ago. I want to read this book and then also My Dark Vanessa by Elizabeth Russell, I think is the author's name. And then Half Her Age by Jeanette McCurdy. That book just came out. I am very excited that it's, Jeanette McCurdy's first novel, her debut novel. I hope it's really good. I hope nothing but good things for her. But I read, obviously Lolita. Everyone knows what Lolita is about. The other two books I mentioned are from a student's perspective and the relationship that they have with these teachers that they have in their lives. And then also last year I read Tampa by Alyssa Nutting, which is from the teacher's perspective about preying on these students of hers. So obviously this is like a really dark, a really intense topic, but I want to read, or I already have read Tampa. I want to read these 3 books that have been published much more recently than Lolita and compare them with each other. So that's my undertaking. We'll see how that goes for me mentally, emotionally, spiritually. We'll find out. And then I have been technically in the middle of Rebecca since like June of last year. I started it while I was at my other job, and then I switched jobs. And when the big life change happens and you're in the middle of a book, sometimes you just stop reading that book, even though you were loving it. But yeah, I need to get back into it. I sort of got back into it last night. I might read a little bit more tonight. And I want to finish. It's really good. It's really good. And then the books that I don't own are, for the most part, manga series. I've been getting more into manga in the past few years, and I would like to read at least one manga series a year. So this year, my kind of top 3 series that I'm interested in are Snow White with the Red Hair, Yona of the Dawn, and Dawn to Dawn. And I can read those through Libby very easily. Also, my local library has Dawn to Dawn, which I didn't realize until I went there for the first time a few days ago, since I moved to the area, and so that was very exciting for me. So yeah, these are the books that I would love to read this year, hopefully, God willing. And this is going to be officially the last time I'm filming this. Whatever I have recorded tonight, this is what I'm posting. I'm not doing this again. All right, well, I hope I read some great books this year. I hope you read some great books this year. Stay safe out there. Tell me what you want to read. Tell me what books you have read recently that are really good and that you recommend. But also know that clearly my TBR is way too big, and I probably won't take your recommendation unless you really convince me. So try your hardest. Okay, no more filming this. Goodbye.